Welcome to the DG Digital Group, the happening part of Mount Baker Amateur Radio. Oh, that's right. Sorry. Somebody gifted me this. Woohoo. That's powerful. So, welcome to the Digital Group. We mostly are going to be talking about Randy's project tonight. This is the Digi-Pi, which is a cool project, and we'll get into the specifics of it when Randy starts talking. The agenda items I tentatively have was I did an interesting exercise in concurrent with Field Day that I called Meadow Day because I didn't want anyone to think that I was claiming that there was any involvement in my experiment with amateur radio, actual amateur radio. What I did was I just grabbed my then all in pieces Starlink system, dragged it out into the middle of my yard, battery pack, laptop, table, and started doing a simulation of emergency communications. And it was a lot of fun and it worked great. And Bud and I did a brief chat, and Bud mercifully edited down the chat. I was going to briefly discuss the changes in amateur radio data communications regs for the HF bands. I've been following this rather closely for my newsletter, and we can scratch the potential discussion about Linux because I misunderstood Mark's desire, what Mark wanted out of such a discussion. So we'll table that till next week, or next month rather. So I'll wait for Bud to get the video queued up, but HF bands used to be, you had to worry about the nuances of your data communications mode, whether or not it exceeded 300 bauds. That was the actual language in the FCC regs. And it was colloquial, or it was called variously the symbol rate. The FCC has now eliminated that completely and said that your data communications mode on HF cannot exceed 2.8 kilohertz bandwidth, period. So whatever you want to do, whatever data mode you want to try to run, as long as it stays within 2.8 kilohertz, works fine. They're good with that. Now, this hasn't actually taken effect. It takes effect 30 days after publication in the Federal Register. So sometime probably by the end of 2023, this will then actually be in effect. So what was really interesting to me was that the FCC said, well, you guys only asked for HF, this change to be made on HF, but we think it ought to be made on VHF and UHF bands where, excuse me for a second. Again, the FCC did something a little unusual in such proceedings as they usually, you do a petition, they answer you with either they dismiss the petition or they make a notice of proposed rulemaking. And they did the notice of proposed rulemaking, and they also, part of that rulemaking was to create what's called a further notice of proposed rulemaking, asking for comments on changes that should be made to the VHF and UHF bands. Now, again, this was initiated by the FCC. So we now have a window to get the symbol rate dropped off of the VHF and UHF bands, which is, and also potentially to change the allowable bandwidth on the VHF and UHF bands. They asked for both of those things. They said they're inclined to retain what is now. The biggest one is that the UHF band can only use up to 56 kilobauds and a 100 kilohertz channel. And I think that we've got a reasonable chance of getting both of those changed. Now, for example, on the UHF band 420 to 450, it's perfectly allowable to use a 6 megahertz channel if you happen to be using analog television. So they're not too concerned about absolute bandwidth. So I say, let's go for it and say, could we use at least 6 megahertz for a data communications signal? So I've written all this up in my newsletter, Zero Retries, about all my impressions about what we ought to do. But the main thing is that there's going to be a window for amateurs to comment back to the FCC about this. And there's a lot of grumbling about this didn't go far enough, and things like, well, what about encryption? The MCOM folks really want encryption to be allowed. There's others that have various sections of the rules that need to be revised. For example, there's an exception in the amateur radio rules for transmitting on certain frequencies around the Arecibo radio telescope, which doesn't exist anymore. So
that's true.
There's some modernizing that needs to be done, but this is not the time to try to do that. They specifically just want comments on the symbol rate, dropping the symbol rates, and potentially changing the allowable bandwidth. So I'm certainly going to comment. I'm going to recommend that all of the readers on my Zero Retries newsletter comment and stay focused on what the FCC is asking for, because this is a magic moment. If we get this done, then we can really do some interesting things on amateur radio, data communications. So that's the news from the FCC. Any questions? Okay. Bud, let's give the video a try.
It's breaking up.
So again, this was an experiment that I just decided I was not going to be able to participate in a full-blown field day this year, but I did have a few hours that I could allocate, and I had thought about this the week before, and the more I thought about it, the more sense it made to just even try this. So literally that morning, after coffee, I started grabbing equipment from my shop and dragging it out. And the equipment consisted of a table, laptop, Starlink terminal, and its power supply / access point, a Cisco VoIP phone that I had bought surplus, and my Bluetti EB3A battery unit. And a solar panel, a generic 100-watt solar panel, all of which you'll see in this video. So I basically just plugged everything together. I had never attempted to do this particular set of things together before. So this was from scratch. And it took me all of 15, 20 minutes to get it all together, and it started working. And as far as I'm concerned, this was emergency communication for the 21st century. And all of the contacts that I did, with one exception of an email message, were all video conferences. Full-blown video, full motion video, broadband speeds, the whole bit. So go ahead, Bud.
But yeah, that sky is awesome behind you. You managed to put this nice bright spot right above your head. It's very angelic.
So again, yeah, there's the Starlink, and it figured out which way it wanted to be pointed.
Was there like a motor in there or something?
Yes. Yeah.
It chases the satellite?
Yep.
Now, does that change during the day, or is it find it and it's there?
It figures out, it has a GPS, so it figures out what the optimum angle for it to be located at. And then as the satellites are passing, it has a phased array system. So it's tracking the satellite satellites that it wants to talk to electronically across the sky. So you don't, it orients itself, it figures out what the optimum orientation is, especially considering, so I've got some trees that would block certain satellites, but it's not bad. I've got mostly open sky, so it figures it out for itself. So it and of course it's
physically move to track. And once it's found a spot, it can track the satellite without physical movement.
correct.
Yeah.
So it has azimuth and elevation control. So it figures out what it wants to do and just does it. And because it's a communication system, it calls the mothership and says, what's the current constellation, downloads that, and then it figures out what it, which direction it wants to be oriented in. And it just handles it. It's really cool.
Wow.
And I'm right now using a solar panel, which is charging via this. This is the Wi-Fi, the Starlink Wi-Fi. I had a Cisco IP phone, which actually worked. It was a surplus unit. And I was appalled that the guy who sold it to me did not wipe it. So it actually connected back to its previous owner, and I actually got dial tone. At that point, I decided to disconnect it.
Yeah.
And let's see, the solar is charging my laptop. I'm on a MacBook Air, and it's charging the laptop and keeping the Starlink running. And I have 120 volt output, 12 volt output, and 3 USB ports. So as far as I'm concerned, this is emergency communications in the 21st century.
Really cool.
Yeah, so the only vulnerability I have at the moment is if the Redmond ground station, Starlink ground station were to go down, it has to be within my communication. Let's see, the satellite has to be able to see a ground station and the user, which is me,
One
at the same
satellite
time.
has to see both of you.
Correct. In the current configuration of Starlink. Now they are starting to launch satellites with inter-satellite links, but those are relatively few at the moment.
So would that be like a mesh network in the sky?
It is. It's going to be exactly a mesh network in the sky. So I've worked a few people already. I talked to the WetNet group in the Seattle area via Jitsi. I did a call to my daughter via FaceTime, and now I've worked you via Zoom.
I can tell you, it looks really good here. I mean, nice quality video, no hiccups.
I haven't checked what my broadband speeds are lately. Let's see. So here we go. So 79 megabits per second downlink and 23 megabits per second uplink with 29 millisecond latency. And that's via Wi-Fi, but it's really close. And then let's see, yeah, for some reason it's orienting itself roughly northwest, which is shaded a little bit by the trees, which surprises me. So
yeah, but it's wherever the satellites are. So your laptop is basically it's Wi-Fi. You don't have an Ethernet connection to Starlink?
I do. I do have a Ethernet port on Starlink.
That would be interesting to do a speed test.
So the Starlink router does not, at least the second generation one that I have, does not come standard with an Ethernet port, but you can get this little inline dongle that adds Ethernet to it. This was like $30. So I've got a single Ethernet port, which of course you can use you can add, you can connect to a switch and then have as much Ethernet as you want. The one downside to Starlink is that it uses a form of network address translation called carrier grade network address translation. And it's hard to get a fixed IP address or even a real IP address. So no one can really call in to me. I have to call out into the internet. I have to work through a central service at the moment. Although there is a business grade version of Starlink that you can get a fixed IP address. It's the same hardware. Well, you can either use it on the same hardware or you can get the really beefy version, which an enterprise would or public safety would use. And that sucker is higher throughput, guaranteed higher throughput and higher reliability. And it's physically bigger. So the dish is, physically more capable. So this took me a grand total of about half an hour. And most of that was schlepping stuff back and forth to the shop, from the shop. And I'm sitting here with a table and 2 camp chairs and a cold carbonated beverage.
Yeah.
And so I'm outstanding in my field here. What I really love about this is that I have no dependencies except for power. So in the cable system, if you lose power, you've got maybe half an hour of communications before everything dies, because in the cable system, there have to be amplifiers and fiber to coax converters that have to be powered. So there are these big white boxes labeled alpha on the poles. That's the battery backup for the cable system. But once the batteries are depleted, you've got nothing until the commercial power comes back on. DSL is a little bit better because that's powered entirely by the central office and the endpoint. There's nothing active in between it. And depending on the fiber system that you would have, it can either be passive optical network, which is just fiber between you and the central office, or there might be a fiber aggregation point somewhere that has to be powered. Starlink, on the other hand, the satellites are solar powered. I'm solar powered, so I can keep going as long as I keep the bill paid and I've got solar power. Now, right now, I'm not getting direct solar power, and I'm charging my laptop, so I'm actually losing ground here in the battery, but I started with a pretty charged battery and I can keep going for quite a while. And if I need to, I can just shut the system off and let the battery, charge with no load and get back online.
Okay.
So WB7 FHC, this is NHNJ 73.
Yeah, you're 5'9" in Washington.
Take care, bud. Thanks again.
Bye.
So a few updates since then. Excuse me. I've discovered that Starlink, although it's using carrier grade NAT for IPv4 addresses, Starlink has now turned on full-time IPv6. It was experimental. They were doing testing, but now it's just there. And you get what a /56 IPv6 address space, which is, I think, at least dozens of IP addresses.
It's big.
Yeah. Well, the IPv6 address space is, basically going to last us till the heat death of the universe. And I've done some experiments with my another friend who's on Starlink, and I can ping him directly, and it's staying entirely within the Starlink system. It's not going out to any place else. It's Starlink to Starlink, and it may even be directly through the same satellite. I haven't done a lot of experiments. Starlink is now shipping a new router, a Gen 3 router that does have Ethernet built in. In fact, 2 Ethernet ports built in. Apparently, they got a lot of pushback from people that, it's like, this sucks. So, and the new router will do mesh networking. So if you want to cover your household completely, or extend it to your barn. The routers just handle it. And then the density of the constellation is sufficient now that there is a version of the Starlink dish that doesn't have motors. Oddly, they're not charging any less for that particular version. It's still $600 or something like that. But it's really nicer because it has a lower profile, so you can that one is ideal for putting on top of vans or boats, that sort of thing. You don't have to accommodate the extra depth of the for the motor. Yes, Ed, go for it.
I priced it. Actually, I got the same system you've got. I got it for hunting season, and I used it for hunting season. It worked pretty good, and I priced that fixed dish one on the top that you can put on the top of the vehicle. That's like $2,500. That's the price I got.
There is that version, but they just, if you haven't looked in the last week or so, they've got a new version of the dish that doesn't have a motor. It's the same price.
Oh yeah.
So and it's intended for, like camping, where it's got a little kickstand on it. So you just point it at an unoccupied piece of the sky, and there's enough satellites in orbit now that it can just handle it. It doesn't have to orient itself optimally anymore.
I thought it was kind of strange that it points to the north. Everything else that I've got points to the south for satellites.
Well,
and it ends up going to the north. So I thought that was kind of strange.
Well, keep in mind that Starlink is in mostly a polar orbit, whereas pointing everything south is for the geosynchronous satellites orbiting the equator.
I was going to say that, yeah, because I was out in the middle of the sagebrush when I set mine up. Yeah, and it goes to the north, no matter where you're at.
Well, in this particular part of the world, that's where the highest density of the satellites are. So it's easiest. It has to do the least amount of work.
So anyway, yeah, I've got the whole setup just like you've got, and yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, it works, and it is the sanest. It's a 21st century internet system. It's state of the art. And they keep making it better as they orbit more satellites. The satellites have roughly a 3-year lifetime at that orbit, and then they deorbit them and make room for more newer satellites. And all the newer ones that are going up have the inter-satellite links. They're not quite, and they've got bigger antennas, better electronics. So they're just going great guns, and supposedly they just became cash flow positive. They're not profitable yet.
Yeah.
But and maybe they won't be for quite a while. But they're making money. They're certainly making money. And if you've ever seen cruise ships these days, typical cruise ship will now have 6 of them clamped onto the rails on the port and starboard side,
Yeah,
just to because it's better broadband than they can get off the geosats.
right.
Any other questions? Rob, go.
Yeah, I was wondering on the older systems before they implemented the IPv6. I didn't even know about that. I'll have to check that out, but I think there was one workaround for being able to dial in. That's using like reverse proxies, like Nginx or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And then you have to have an actual server on the ground that can help work this through, so you can get actual incoming calls. It essentially extends your servers or whatever you're running on the satellite system, and essentially makes it look like it's running on the ground through proxies.
It's
convoluted.
You have to, because of CGNAT, you have to have a meet in the middle point. Mm-hmm. And that's what everybody has done up until the point of IPv6. Now, For example, I have an allocation of IPv4 addresses from Net44. And you can, it is very well established to be able to tunnel IPv4 through IPv6. So for example, I have a bunch of IPv4 addresses in my lab, and I want to give my friends access, my amateur radio friends access to all of those devices. I can set up a tunnel through one of my many IPv6 addresses to map to my IPv4 and vice versa. So I think those of us who are using Starlink as experiment, that are into radio, I suspect that before long, there will be a fair number of hams who are using Starlink who will, there's already a mailing list for Starlink hams. And I suspect that people will start opening up things to be able to do direct Starlink to Starlink communication using IPv6.
That would be so cool.
It would indeed. So the one thing I have to fix is getting the Starlink signal out of my shop and into my house. Then I can tell Comcast to. So, and Comcast apparently does IPv6, just not nearly as well. But, and what's amazing about Starlink is that they just did it. They just turned it on, and if you know what it is and you know how to use it, it's there. What I was amazed at when I was asking these questions, a couple of guys came back to me and said, just look at your network status on your Mac. If it's showing, and my Mac is the only device that's plugged right now that's plugged into my Starlink and my office Mac. And sure enough, there was an IPv6 there. And so he said, okay, start pinging and secure shelling, etc. And it just works.
Yeah.
So IPv6 is the wave of the present. Okay, so any other questions about Starlink? Good to know about that. Ed, is yours only on when you're out in the bush?
Yeah, I can. It's still on right now because I'm figuring on playing with it just for some experiments and stuff. But yeah, the nice part is, you can pause it for the year.
Right. So you've got the $130 service?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So you just turn it on and off when you don't need. You turn it off when you don't need it.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Cool. Okay. So any other discussions before we turn it over to Randy and check out Digi-Pi? Okay. Redirect all resources to Randy, please.
Okay. Well, my name's Randy Robinson, N7EBB. I'm going to talk about a printed circuit board that I've developed to interface your amateur radio to Digi-Pi hotspot that Craig, KM6LYW, has written a very nice program that fits on the 8 gig. Actually, it'll do it on a 4, but nobody has a 4 anymore. And when inserted into a Raspberry Pi, it'll allow you to operate just about any data mode you can think of, just and it'll work on any Pi as far as I know. I see Craig has them on Pi 4s and 3s and everything else. We're going to be doing the Pi 02W here. Well, let's see. Let me get you, I share my screen here. So Pi 0, Pi 02W is what this one is. This SD card is what Craig has written. He's been developing this piece over the last 4 or 5 years, and he's a professional programmer. And this little unit here You can get that from him. If you go to the link that was put on the notification this morning, you can see, you'll go right to his. Anyway, Digi-Pi version 1.7, and he's actually at 1.7-3 now. So, which is what I have in this unit sitting here. Okay, so this Raspberry Pi with this SD card in it, plugging into this by itself, you plug into this USB port here and plug it into your radio that's cat capable, and it'll do everything that it says on here. This thing is a lot like the, it runs Direwolf and various other things. It's like Bud's Nexus DRX. So it'll do APRX and AX25, WinLink, email, FT8, JS8 call, slow scan TV, PSK31 packet, and CW, as well as all of the modes in Direwolf, which is a pretty long list.
Randy, don't you mean all the modes in FL Digi?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
FL Digi, yeah. So this is a stack. There's your Pi 0 down there. This is the FeePi board that it's like used on the Nexus DRX. You can get these from Bud. And the nice thing about this whole unit, when you get it stuck together, is that it's very small, lightweight. You can pack the thing up to go POTA Parks on the Air or the SOTA Summits on the Air. It's lightweight, 5 volts, and it'll do all those things we just talked about. Here it is with the, this is a 1.3-inch TFT display that you can get from Amazon or from Adafruit for about $16 plus shipping. It's this board right here. You'll see a little later. It's very nice color display, and it's easily readable. This little unit here is what plugs into my board. It takes a ground and the audio and receive and transmit audio up to the interface board. Here's the full stack. Your Pi, your audio board, the display, which is not necessary. This is if you're linking to it from another device, you don't need the display, but it's kind of nice to be able to see what's going on when it first starts up. This is the board that I'm going to be going over here. So here it is. It's 25 millimeters by 30 millimeters, and it's here. Anybody in the room that wants to look at it, pick it up. This is the parts layout. This is the 6-pin DIN, mini DIN right here. This TRRS is for just 4 contacts on it. It has, ground PTT, transmit and receive audio.
Randy,
Yes.
you should explain that the original one was dead bug cell.
Yeah, well, the original connection that you'll see in the documentation here, and I don't have a picture that I can put on the screen, but it's here. It's instead of the board, let's see. Instead of this board here, it's open like so, and there's a MOSFET and a resistor that they've got stuck, just shrink wrapped on a couple pieces of wire, goes out on a basically an old telephone cord, a 4-wire telephone cord, and to an RJ11 jack that he plugged his radio into, and I took one look at that and decided that maybe there was a better way, and so I got to work and come up with this printed circuit board that would fit in there. And the second try, it worked. The first one worked, but it overlapped. It wasn't spaced right. So and you'll see if you look at his videos and you look at this, he stuck LEDs here, and here, and these, and then the wires just kind of come up and are soldered to these pins here and soldered underneath. Anyway, I come up with this board that I thought was maybe would be a lot easier and better for everyone. And
Gee, where have we heard this theme before?
well, I gave one of these kits to Bud. I don't know if he's put it together yet or not, but I put it, and then I took a number 3 and I built it and sent it to Craig in California there, the programmer, the originator of the Digi-Pi, this Digi-Pi. And so he's kind of excited about it. This is basically just, you just plug into that header. There's the blue LED, the green LED, and the red LED, and then there's a 1200 baud, 9600 baud, which probably won't be used until later. Some of the newer radios might do it, I don't know, but it's contingency. And this is, for like, if you wanted to plug in a portable, it's easy to do that way, but I don't have a 4-pin jack yet, or plug, so I haven't built the cable for that. You can get these pre-made, but this comes 2 different ways. Some radios, the PTT is on the tip, and some of them it's on the second ring. So the 2 just swap places. No, not the transmit, the receive. It just one was this way and the other one's that way. So the kit comprises of 15 parts plus a board. There's LED with its associated resistor. That's the red one. There's the green one, and the blue one is associated. There's the its dropping resistor. This is the main connector. There's your TRRS. That's tip ring sleeve is what that stands for. This is the 6-pin mini DIN. There's your MOSFET and its associated resistor. This is the jumper, the printed circuit board. This cable right here is the one that goes to your audio board. There's just 3 wires. You got ground, transmit audio, and receive audio. And it is stacked up on there. So here it is. There's the red, which comes on when it transmits, green when it receives. That is when it receives an identifiable packet. It's got to be a viable packet before that will light up. I listen to it and I hear weak signals and it doesn't do it. But in all honesty,
it's driven from the Raspberry Pi, right? Okay.
And in all honesty, I have not gone in and set up the audio board on this for this unit. So, but it still works. You can look at it here. It's full of contacts here. It's set up as a Digi-Pi, a Digipeater right now. Okay, so let's see. It's the bottom of the board. There's the connector that plugs into the pins, and there's the 3 that go to the audio board. There it is in all its glory. There's another one, the 6-pin DIN. This is the display. It looks like it's laying flat, but it's actually got a connector on it, just like this board goes down on there. There's the two of them side by side. Here's the connection underneath. Those three wires come through, and there's yellow is the receive, ground, and the transmit audio. This is the audio. Here it is, and let me see if it. That's a pretty nice display for the size compared to 1.3 inch OLED, which is mono in color. I mean, it's just blue or white. And this is, you can got the little symbols on here. You can see a car or a truck or whatever, a house. It's been so many years since I messed with APRS that things have changed drastically, and they've got tons of different symbols for everything you can dream of. Okay, so there it is, that audio board plugged into it, and then into what I'm calling the Digi-Pi radio interface board. And here, it's important to get these lined up. That board lines up on the outside edge. These two pins or actually 4 pins, are not used for anything. But to get the spacing in here, and since we didn't need any of these, that's the way it comes out. And that's normal. That's the way it should be before you power it up.
So in your board, the TRRS jack and the 6-pin mini DIN are the same connection.
Yes, they're in parallel. With the
That way, so that's why you've got to do a hard solder tack to the audio board because you don't have a jack available.
Yeah, to prevent having to use a cable from the receive jack and the transmit jack going up to this board. It's just those three that go underneath, plugging right into here. That
Okay.
white jack that's underneath it comes up here. And these two are in parallel, except for this jumper here. This one will only do 1200. This one has the capability of 9600, but whether the software is capable of that or not, I can't tell you. It's there in case that comes up eventually. This will, see this plug, this 6-pin DIN has got a 1200 baud and a 9600 baud pin.
Randy, can I jump in there on that?
You bet. Go ahead.
I'm not going to try to get my video up. It's okay. It's really unfortunate the radio manufacturers labeled these two connections 1200 baud and 9600 baud. They have absolutely nothing to do with the baud rate, not a thing. It has to do with the way FM radios emphasize and de-emphasize audio in the discriminators. And so to make a nice clean sounding, voice sound on an FM radio, they mess around with the audio. And when we want to run good, clean data modes, we don't want all that other fooling around going on. So if you have a radio that will support the 9600 baud, always choose it. No matter what you're doing, always choose the 96, because then you circumvent, you've done an end run around this audio manipulation that the radio is trying to do. Okay. And so it allows you to get right in where you need to be without it being fussed with. If your radio doesn't support that, you have to choose the 1200. But if you're always pick 96, regardless of what you're doing, and if it doesn't work, switch to 1200. But it will, with the modern radios that we have, if it's got a 6-pin mini DIN plug, you want it on 96. No matter what you're doing, put it on 96. and get and not mess with that audio fooling around that the radio's doing. Is that helpful? So like on yours, put it on the 96 and it's gonna actually work better. And they labeled it the 96 and the 1200 because 9600 baud is not going to work at all if you go through all that audio manipulation. So you have to have a path that circumvents that. And they labeled it 9600 baud, which is really unfortunate.
Okay, so that's good information. The way I understand it is that the 9600 baud coming through this port is basically discriminator audio, whereas the 1200 is, like you say, it's speaker audio where it's been manipulated for the human ear. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. You don't,
So
always,
in this,
and unless it doesn't work at all, then try 1200. But start with 96.
okay,
If you're running
so
300 baud packet, choose 96 if your radio is going to support it.
okay, good information.
Doesn't have anything to do at all with the baud rate. Nothing to do with the baud rate.
Okay. This is on 12 here, even though my signal is coming in on this pin because I just built a cable that plugs into the speaker and mic jack of this little portable here. I have a Kenwood mobile that I can plug into here, and it works okay on this, but it would probably work better on the 96 over here. So because it's grabbing that 1200, which is just speaker audio. Okay, and so this is that TRRS tip, ring 1, ring 2, and the sleeve. So this shows ground on the sleeve, PTT on R2, the audio in on R1, and the audio out on the tip. So what I've discovered is that the tip here, audio out, and the PTT, they switch depending on the type of radio that you have. I'm going to look into if I can get enough room on the board, even if I have to go to SMD components. I'm going to put a quad type. I'm thinking about putting a quad type connector on there, just like this 12 and 96 or 12 and 90. Yeah. That will, you put the pins in vertically and it'll be one way, and you switch them the other way and it'll switch those two pins. In other words, they'll be on the opposite sides. And so if I go this way, it'll go there. And if I do this way, yes.
Not question for you. Would it be possible to maybe use it like a tiny, I don't know how small they make them, but like a DP double pole, double throw switch to switch the inputs on the TR or the
On this
yeah,
TRRS,
the connector there.
TRRS,
It's probably more space effective to use the jumpers like
yeah.
Randy is
Okay.
doing.
What I'm thinking about doing is moving things around and putting 4 pins, the quad, instead of this. Well, the 3 will still be there on that, but the quad will be there. And so I can put PTT here and the audio here. So if I jumper it this way, it's one configuration. If I jumper it this way, it's the other configuration. So you just pick the one you want for the cable that you happen to have or the type of radio that you happen to have.
If I can jump in again, Randy, in answer to Rob's question, when I designed the watchdog timer I'm using a little slider switch. That slider switch has the exact same footprint as the 3-pin header that Randy's using on the board. So, assuming there's room for it, it could be installed there instead of the and you would have a switch that it's a real tiny switch, but you could flip it with a ballpoint pen or something to switch between the two. But it's not the kind of thing that you normally change. It's a set and forget. Set it up the way that works with your radio, and you'll probably never touch it again. But yes, there is a switch that'll fit the same footprint.
Let's see, I think you gave me a few of those last time I was up, and so I'll have to try that, slide it in there, but, if it, is that, 2.54 millimeter spacing on it?
It's the exact same spacing. So you could put that little slider switch in instead of a 3-pin header in the existing holes. They're 2.54 millimeter spacing.
Okay. Well, that's all I have, except I've got it sitting here running. My first one, my only one. There's only three of these boards out there in the wild right now. Mine, one I sent to Craig, and the kit that I gave to Bud. So anyway, that's all I've got. Does anybody have any questions that maybe I can answer? You get most of your information from Craig online.
Right, but the cool thing about the Digi-Pi, that as far as I'm concerned, is that unlike the Nexus, is that the Digi-Pi was designed from the get-go to be used remotely. So all of the user interface is designed as a, to be, you stick this in the corner and ignore it, the physical aspects of it, and then you use it with your iPad or your laptop or something like that. And I explained this idea to my daughter, and she said, that's exactly what I want. I don't want to have to worry about even having to plug in a monitor or anything into the actual unit. I'd rather just use it entirely remotely. And the Digi-Pi, or the Digi-Pi with the LCD, to give you a quick status of it, that it's working, and troubleshooting is just ideal. So, and I've heard a lot of concern about this, that eventually you're going to be making these as assembled, and somebody's going to be making these as assembled and tested, so you can just buy them and slap your Digi-Pi together.
Correct. And I've given that a lot of thought, and I just ordered some more boards. I don't know whether I'm going to get 5 or 60 of them. I don't know what I'm going to get.
The other thing is,
I decided that I will do it. I'll give it a try. And I kind of mulled it over, and I decided that you want to buy the board, I'll sell it to you for $8. If you want the kit, it's all the parts, $12. Put it together yourself. You don't have to source this stuff. If you are not comfortable doing that, you want a complete unit, outside of soldering those 3 pins to the audio board, I will sell it for $25. I'll put it together. You pay the shipping. I just ship it.
now, speaking of attaching it to the, now, wouldn't it be possible to just put a jack on the end of that cable and plug it into the Fi? The way it's done with the Nexus?
No, those plugs are input as a separate plug for input and output, and they're stereo. And so he has to connect to both of those jacks.
Okay.
with this thing there. I actually, let me see if I can get my picture on here. I actually had some of those boards manufactured at one time without the audio jacks on them. But we use the audio jacks on the Nexus DRX. I actually believe some of the people have removed them for the Digi-Pi, or they're just soldering on the pins underneath the board. I should rethink that because I just got a recent batch of boards, but maybe in the future I will not have the audio jacks installed on the Pi, and I can send them out with loose in the box, and people could install them themselves if they need them. So it sort of depends. Like if you're going to do the Nexus, you want them. If you're going to do the Digi-Pi, they're just a nuisance. Get them out of there.
Well, this is just, the other thing is this is just 3 contacts. Very easy
Yeah,
to solder on there. It's
as long as you know which pin to solder them to. And I think Craig's done a real good job of making that clear.
yeah.
What you guys might not be aware of is that the younger generation is very solder shy. Unless somebody is holding their hand, unless they've had a chance to actually use a soldering iron under supervision, there's a lot of people that are just not willing to do any soldering. So they want a plug and play system. You know, they're willing to maybe splice together a cable, you know, but that's about it. You know, soldering onto PCBs is still, you know, is a vanishing art. It's certainly not dead. And people are learning to do it, but
Steve, before
there's reluctance.
COVID put a stop to our build parties. We were having build parties and people were having a lot of fun coming in and soldering for the first time. And you know, they came in, they built the Nexus, and they learned how to solder. And we didn't let them out the door until their Nexus was working and on the air. And it was a lot of fun, and they enjoyed it. So maybe this is a thing we could revisit. I mean, what if a group of us all got together and built Randy's board?
I agreed. I'm just saying that our generation thinks nothing of tacking 3 wires onto a printed circuit board. That's not a universal constant.
Or making one.
Yeah, or assembling it.
Well, one thing that I was going to ask or say is that instead of just having something that you could solder to the board, why don't you have like pins that are soldered to the board that you could just put jumpers on so nobody has to solder anything?
Well, the problem
Like
there is
a
that
little header thing.
you would have to source a modified Pi board to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
They'd have to buy that Pi board from you, and you'd have a lot of money sunk into boards like that.
The beauty of the Pi as it exists is that Bud has not had to change the design from the original, you know, designer, and he gets them working mostly reliably. So, you know, tampering with the design.
I would have to look at this because, you know, you could probably modify it so that you could do something like that on the top side of this. You couldn't do it on the bottom of it because your heat sink on your Pi, there's not enough spacing in there to do that kind of stuff.
Okay, just to let you guys know, I got 4 to 6 of these double throw switches that are so small that it fits on my fingernail.
Yeah.
It's a single pole double throw switch.
Yeah. I
got a bunch of these. Don't know what to do with them. Okay,
Rob, your question about the headers, the pin spacing for the mini DINs is entirely different from the typical pin spacing on headers. So even if if I could find headers, I might have some that would fit in the holes that where the mini DIN Oh no, where the stereo audio jack goes, the headphone jack goes. I don't. Then our connectors wouldn't fit. So I don't think putting pins in there. I guess you could put one pin in each spot, but again, it's sort of like you once it's done, you leave it there. You know, it's not something you're gonna unplug and plug and unplug and plug. It's hook it up and leave it. So soldering it is like Steve is saying, it's easy to do. It's just well, most people don't have the equipment, and it's not reasonable to expect them to go out and buy a soldering station to hook up 2 or 3 wires. You got to find somebody that already has it. They'll do it for you, and it takes them a few minutes.
Yeah.
The
I just
only,
thought I'd
the only
throw that out
possibility here would be, the TRRS jack there. You could make a Y cable that would plug into that and, would plug into that and plug into these 2 jacks down here on the Pi board.
Right.
And you would put your radio on the 6-pin DIN only. The other one would be used to interface to your audio board.
Or if they have like maybe a RP or a reverse polarity type of adapter or something that would swap.
No, it'd have to be a Y that you would plug into there, and then the other end of it would have 2 jacks that would plug into the side of this. That's gonna wind up picking up more space, so.
Well, I actually think it's quite doable. What you'll find, Randy, is that people will figure out things to do with the board that you never dreamed of, and you go, "Oh, wow, yeah, you could do that. I didn't know that." You didn't plan for it, and then they do it anyway.
Yeah.
Hackers.
That's what I would do.
I think
Oh, well, what I didn't,
you've done a really good job of laying out that board. I'm really pleased. I am really, really deep and heavy into a major project here, so I haven't tried to put mine together yet. But if there's a group of people that are going to sit down together somewhere and have fun and build them, I'd be glad to bring mine along and join.
Randy, if you're taking orders tonight, I will put down my money for 2 or 3 or 4 kits.
you want,
I said 1 before. I want 2 kits.
you want 2,
2
you want
kits.
3.
Or
Okay, I can't do that tonight, but I can do, I've got,
Well, if you're gonna make a board, if you're gonna make a board order,
oh yeah, I've already done that
just
yesterday.
factor it in, you know?
But
I did that yesterday, but I've got,
All right. I'm not in a rush.
what have I got here? I got tonight, I could take orders because I'm almost, I have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 5 of them,
How much for the whole kit?
$12.
all right, no fighting.
this is awesome. You did a great job, and this answers one of my burning, worries about throwing together a Pi or a Digi-Pi. So great job.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Something I didn't mention, if you haven't been on Craig's, looked at Craig's videos and stuff, is that the way he uses it, you can connect to this when you burn the software and you plug it in, when you first power it up, it will come up as like most Pis. It's going to look for a Wi-Fi, which it's not going to find. It's not going to find your Wi-Fi. So it will make a hotspot of itself, and it will come up with 10.0.0.5 as its address. And when you can Wi-Fi to that, and you will get a web page, and you put in your information. You've got to put in a series of information, your Latin long and your call sign and various things like that, APRS number and all the stuff.
All this stuff is in his videos and stuff?
Yes, well,
What's it-
actually, if you go, if the notice that was sent out about this, today, it has an address of his. And you'll go to something that looks like this. This is printed up.
What's his call?
His call is KM6LYW, but if you go to Digi-Pi.com, is that I think it is? Digi-Pi. It's got an org.
I'll
Let's see,
get,
let me-
I'm looking for the address here and I'll post it in the chat room, but,
Okay. Yeah, it's on the notification of the,
so do I recall, in order to get the image, you sign up as a Patreon? To get that image, and that's only $2.
Not quite. It's you get the image, but you got it to it's password protected. So to get the password, you have to chip in. And
Okay.
he claims that he's doing that purely as a keeping the noise to a minimum.
well, yeah, that was a certain number of years ago, but it's a very simple password. He actually has said it on one of his videos.
Yeah, he's not trying to be a dick about it. It's reasonable. It's he's put a lot of work into this. This is not a trivial thing. So again, if you want to use a Nexus DRX remotely, you're using it as basically another desktop app, whereas his is proxying it through a web page. So it's a completely different user experience.
And also, you can Bluetooth to this thing. So you can, if you put APRS Droid or one of these others that he talks about in your phone, you can Bluetooth to it, and that's where the blue LED comes on. If you get connected Bluetooth wise, this blue LED will be on all the time that you're connected to it with Bluetooth. That screen will be on your phone. You can do FT8. You've got this thing hooked to your
From your
HF
phone.
radio. You can sit in your easy chair, spending quality time, as he says, quality time with your wife. She thinks you're fooling with your phone, texting somebody, and you're actually working your radio. FT8. You're sending, and his newest app here is our feature is something called APRS web chat. So you can bring that up. You can do the things that like Ed was talking about. You can put in there, N2 or N3, and it will come back to you over APRS. It'll come back to you with, if you put in a N2, it'll tell you the two repeaters that are nearest to you. It'll tell you what they are, the frequency and whatever. Let's say these two repeaters are closest to you. So you're out, Ed has talked about being out in the bush and he's out and he puts out into his portable and it comes back with the two nearest, according to his GPS location, the two nearest repeaters to him. So he can grab one and talk to somebody. But also, this web chat deal, you can text. It goes from your radio, your phone, to your Digi-Pi, out over the air. You're signed up on a connection, a server someplace. It goes into the network and goes everywhere, wherever, to the person you want to talk to, if it's somebody's call sign, or let's say that it's set up in there, and maybe you want to text your wife. You're out in the middle of nowhere, and you don't have cell service, but you can get into the APRS network. You could text her.
Mm-hmm.
And she could text back, and it's all legal. So you can text, as long as you set everything up, you can text to anybody you want to. Amateur or not,
public.
as long as you're an amateur.
Did I talk to you about DigiRig?
Digi-Rig. I've seen limited information about
Okay.
that.
Let me,
Before you start that, the URL is Krager.org.
Prager.org.
Krager.org/Digi-Pi.
Perfect.
And I'll stop sharing. There.
Thank you, bud.
Now, he did say on here, and I'm not sure,
so
totally clear about this, but
Randy, take a look. So,
okay.
this is the Digi-Rig store. The Digi-Rig is a very nice audio interface,
See this?
but it's just a sound card essentially.
Well, but just these cables, this pair of cables, are $34. One of them is for programming your portable, whether most all the Chinese, the Bofeng and all the Chinese stuff, the Wolfangs and whatever they're called, and the Kenwood portables use this same configuration. So one of these is for chirp, and the other one is for
Right.
doing your digital stuff.
They are a bit pricey, but they are very well made,
They're very well made.
and they've got the
toroids on
Yep.
both ends of them, and they're 12 cords, so they're not, you're gonna, not gonna.
If you want to do portable, this is the way to do it. Now, are you staying in sync with that wiring?
Okay, that's what I was talking about here. I went back and forth on this, and I think this board is with the wiring of this.
Do they have one?
I haven't
for,
tested it.
whatchamacallits? The Anytones?
Anytone what?
I think that's just Kenwood.
What?
Anytone 8.
Portables?
Well, see,
Anytone 878.
What is that? Is that the portable?
That's
Yeah, that's my handheld. Yeah.
Did you find it?
well, basically, that's what I was trying to say earlier, is that here,
Can we get Randy on the camera? He's walked away from the camera.
All right, hold on.
here we go.
Sit down, Randy.
Does this work?
That works. There we go.
Too
Yeah.
high, lower.
Let me get rid of something here.
Not an 878 yet, currently.
Okay, but it's coming.
Well, I don't know. They just don't happen to list the 878.
Yeah.
They
But
I
do
think-
this
I think
two
it's
different
on-
ways.
I use the same speaker. mic.
This connector, the PTT and the receive, they just swap them. And that's what I was talking about, possibly adding to the next version, is that quad, so that you just jumper one way or the other. Those two jumpers, just move them 90 degrees.
And that's why I was and that's why I was saying I got these little switches that you could use instead of a jumper if you wanted.
Personally, I think that these little jumpers are a lot better contact. They're not
I agree.
gonna go south on you like a switch would, especially a mini switch.
Yeah,
This is gonna contact.
they're little toggle switches.
Yeah,
But it's
toggles.
They're cute.
Yeah, they're really cute.
it's a set and forget. Not something.
I actually
Walk in the woods without a toothpick, you're in trouble.
I actually had to troubleshoot a switch like that once upon a time, and I discovered that the person that had been flipping the switches back and forth used a ballpoint pen, and the ink was conductive, and it seeped into the switch and shorted it out.
So, as far as I've been able to find, that's with those cables, those look like Rob was saying, they're quality. They're probably the best you can get. And they have toroids on them, which is a problem with this, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, if you're going to use a portable, you want the toroids.
Yeah. So, if you're out in your rig, like in Ed's rig, I mean, he's got mobiles of every description in there, and you just plug into here and you're good to go. I've had it plugged into my mobile that's mounted on my bench, under my bench, and
I mean, some of these cables are so sophisticated. You know, the Elecraft K3, it's got a DB9 and the TRRS cables, and it splits it out perfectly. It's just they did a great service for the amateur radio community by developing those cables.
Yeah, I use a Kenwood 710 in my Jeep, so I got all the APRS stuff on there.
I've got an 878 portable. I'll plug this into it and see whether it works, and
He says it works with his Kenwood
see the.
on an 878. But it's the same plug.
I've got these, so I can do that testing. I can move these around if I want. I can switch those two on it because they're just.
What is that?
Oh, okay, nice.
So I can test it and see whether it works.
Are most of the handheld Kenwoods the same? Because when I go down to Arizona,
Stuff that came out
a
of
buddy of mine sell me his old.
when it got all closed out. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that Kenwood 710, it ends up giving me all the
when they had to grab
positions and who's doing it and everything.
Oh, okay.
That Kenwood.
How much is that radio, Ed?
Oh,
is that the $1,000? Oh,
Yeah, that's-
Oh no, it's.
I mean,
Some people have asked for that, but no, it was originally like a $600 radio, and they're unobtainium now because Kenwood discontinued them.
Yeah,
710 is the one with the big, beautiful display.
yeah, it's a nice radio.
Yeah, this D7, I guess it's got some features. It's not made anymore, of course, but I was just wondering if I can use this with it, or if I even need to use that with it. I don't know.
Well, I think it's the one they use on the space station.
Correct. The slightly newer version, the G.
Yeah, probably.
But yes,
Pretty good radio for $150.
I don't think you're getting a 710 for 100.
No, not a 710. No, I said the D7.
I can't remember what I paid for it.
I don't think there is
Have to.
D7. It's a THD6.
D7A/G, I think is what. It doesn't matter. I don't want to sidetrack. So.
Generally, Kenwood makes good stuff. If it's working, it's going to be a good radio. Okay.
If you like it, they'll discontinue.
Anybody else?
Well, I was just gonna read a little sentence here. Craig, and this is on the page of all the information. It says, we're talking about this, downloaded the image here. It says, please share with friends, but do not post this image online. All of the software carries an open source license and is freely available, just not all in one piece in a bootable image. Thank you for your support. I don't know, you can interpret that however you want, but it sounds like,
Well, that's entirely reasonable, because what can happen is that other people will decide to post it else. Well, no, they just start forking it and diverging, and then it starts diverging. If you keep it in one consistent place to get it, then everybody has the same experience. And so when it's time to update, everything works, instead of the freelancers having to deal with the freelance versions.
Right.
Exactly, and they don't.
Probably not on GitHub.
When he updates the software, you want to make sure that you got the version that's updated. If somebody else posted one 6 months ago, and you Google it and find it and download it, and it's not current, and so it needs to be in one spot so that everybody's got the same thing. There's no reason to put it in more than one place. Let him put it where he wants it. Yeah.
For 2 radios.
when I first signed up as a patron is for $2 a month. It was version 1.7-1, and then there was -2, and then now there's -3. So he keeps, fixing little bugs or adding actual modes, not modes, but types of screens where you can just go in there and do like this chat, APRS chat and various things. But yeah, it'll do. You look at his videos and there he is. He's got his phone, and it doesn't have waterfall on it, but there's FT8 on it going away, and he could make contact with it, or you could. What he likes to use, of course, and it's easier to see on his videos, is his tablet. You could use a portable, but I mean, not a lot of point in that, because you can have WSJTX on it and just hook it right to your radio, one way or another. But a 10-inch tablet or whatever. Anyway,
Bravo.
Plus, if
Do you guys realize that this area is a hotbed of this? That we had Brian Hoyer, Northwest Digital Radio, making products in Friday Harbor, and then now we've got Bud, now we've got Randy. It's like, this is really cool. This is, and Randy's very modest. He's very unassuming about this, but this will kind of take it to the next level, I think.
You just need a working phone system. It doesn't have to have a SIM card, does it? It doesn't have to be connected to anything. And you could download it to Wi-Fi when you get home.
You're missing it. So you turn on Wi-Fi on your phone.
Yeah.
But
it doesn't have to be an activated phone. I've got 3 old.
Yes, you're getting it. You're starting to get it.
What are they? Note 3s.
yeah.
Okay. The point is, as long as it's got a web browser and you can specify the IP address to go to, what is it? 10.0.0.
It does have to be able to tie in something else. So that's okay.
It's the Digi-Pi. You're accessing the Digi-Pi itself. The Digi-Pi has
Through the airwaves.
Yeah.
Through its built the Pi 0W or the Pi 02W has a Wi-Fi chip on it that's capable of being an access point.
Which
So
this one is right now. Because
you open your phone up. No cellular. You can use Bluetooth, but you don't have to. And you specify in the web browser of the phone 10.0.0.5, and then it will respond to you and display you a web page of the Digi-Pi. You have no other dependencies. You have the Digi-Pi, you have a phone with a web browser. That's all you need. And then you're off and running. And you are completely
The phone has to be able to hook to the internet.
No.
It's hooking to the internet through the
No internet.
Okay, so all it is it's
TCP/IP.
acting as just being a touchpad and a screen.
Well, yeah, but you're using TCP/IP, but you've got no connectivity to the internet needed.
Okay, so it works.
So your phone, when you turn on your Wi-Fi on your phone, no cellular, no card, no anything.
There's a caveat to that. We discovered it at Field Day a couple years ago. If you're using Chrome as a web browser, it will not work. Chrome has to phone home. And so if Chrome can't find the internet, you can't connect to your Wi-Fi's web page. So we had to switch to Firefox in order to make it work. And that's why Steve includes Firefox in his image. Chrome's the bad guy here. It's going to keep Mark from doing what he wants to do if there's no internet. But Firefox and probably some other browsers will be fine.
I got Firefox on those. They're no problem.
Chrome's the only one that we know of that's a problem. They expect you to phone home. They want to know what you're doing.
this, when you program it for first it comes up with 10.0.0.5. But when you first start up the program and you load up those parameters, and you can see them right here, all the ones that you need to put in there. Once you do that and it's running, then the next page that comes up is what network and SSID that you want for your home local network. And so you can put those in there and it'll connect to your network, and now everything in the house will connect to it.
That's
You
optional.
pick it up and go out to the field. And now, when you power it up, it's going to look for that and it's not going to find it. So then it will turn itself into a hotspot and it'll come up. And if you look on your phone right now, you'll see Digi-Pi on it as a Wi-Fi available. And if you select that one as your network, then you should be able to go right to it at 10.0.0.5. I don't know how many it'll serve. Whoever gets in first, maybe, I don't know. But
It was showing a secured connection, so might need the key to get in. Did you set a password?
oh, Digi-Pi. Well, let's see what it says here.
Guys, we got to wind it down here to be able to be out at the appointed time. So
Web browser.
Mark, the main point is that
Password is, are you ready? Lowercase, ABCDEFGHIJ. That's what it is, right there. IJ. ABCDEFGHIJ. Hey guys, before we go, I got a couple things to say.
sure.
One thing I want to bring up extra for the Starlink thing was over there in Eastern Washington in the snow. It's got a button where you push and it goes to snow melt, and it melts the snow off of it. That was pretty cool. Also,
and it says 10.0.
Also this morning on the DMCC net with the hospitals, Steve Magnuson checked in with the island hospitals, so he's still active out there.
Right.
Hey, Ed,
Yeah,
you know that snow melt button? Is there
Yeah.
a remote activation on that? Can you do that through your network that you're connected
yeah,
to?
you can do it off your phone and stuff.
I was gonna say, because that way you don't have to go out there and hit the button manually.
No,
It's
no, you
cold.
do it off your phone or off the internet that you're connected to. Either way.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah.
Did you get to it?
What's that?
Or it's just got my call sign and everything on it? That's okay.
I couldn't.
Oh.
You should see.
So anyway,
I see a lot.
yeah, Steve Mason. Yeah, and then I was going to say at 10 o'clock, if you guys can stay up till 10 o'clock, Frontline's got a good program on Ukraine you might want to watch. And tonight, the Rolling Stones announced they're going to do another tour.
Yeah.
Two
They're
venues.
coming out of retirement for the 400.
Yeah.
They're gonna,
One more
they're gonna
time,
prop
they're gonna do
body
it
up.
again.
Oh, he's got enough drugs in him still from the 60s that he doesn't need.
Keith Richards.
So here's the
Frequencies right.
144, 390.
Well, just to make it formal, we're gonna wind it down
Church
here,
that shows
folks.
up.
So
Is
7-3 all, and
right here in the building.
thank you, Randy. Good
I'm
job,
gonna-
man.
I'm gonna pull the plug and start the processing.
Thanks, Bud.
Great meeting, Randy, everybody. See you down the road.
All right. Have a good night. Hasta mañana.